just made me think about something that I haven't pieced together. Certainly not in our home, but I'm going through this guy Rollo Tomasi's book right now called Religion, and the basic premise of his book is just how religion has been shaped now by culture instead of the other way around, particularly male-female relationships. That's what he writes about. And so, or as he called it, intersexual dynamics. And one of the main things that he just pointed out in this book, and he said this in prior books, is that love flows downhill. Man loves a woman, woman loves a child. And so if we viewed it like that, that doesn't mean that a woman doesn't love her man, but that means that the love let's put it like this, that "I'll die for you" love doesn't go to her man, that goes to her children. The man has that "I'll die for you" love for his wife, and then that "I'll die for you" love for his children. So he was pointing out that whether we want to argue about this pretty much from a religious perspective or whether we want to argue about it from an evolutionary perspective, one thing is true. Ingrained in us as men that women capitalize on is knowing that in us innately, we want to defend a woman. And
Yes.
so even if we see a woman that we have no idea who she is, she's just a complete stranger, but immediately when we see her scream or hear her scream rather, or see her get attacked, we as men feel like, I got to go help. I got to go help solve this. And we even see this on YouTube videos. The first thing people will be putting in the comments is, how come none of those men stepped in? How come none of where those? But no one ever asked another woman, how come you didn't step in to help? You know,
in combat too.
Really. So
yeah, I actually had a female tell me that. That was the biggest thing is she had noticed is whenever something occurred, here was a man, no matter if she was one of their soldiers, like even if she was senior to them, some man felt like they had to come protect her, make sure she was okay. Things that didn't happen even to a younger male soldier, but it's like this, she says instinct, but belief that they have to protect the woman there.
Yep.
So yeah, I agree.
How much more does that then come into, like you said, when it's your mom? Even at a young age, it's there. Even just still you as a male child is like, because I wonder, if we were to talk to Dee, if she would have felt that same thing. She probably would have to a certain degree, but not nearly as much as what you felt. Yeah. So man, I never thought of it from that angle, because it goes to show, outside of us being socialized that way, how much more, even at a young age. And I'm just throwing it out there, especially to my single dads out there, or if you're a dad out there going through a divorce and you're like, we get into parental alienation syndrome and things like that. It's hard you want to be mad at the kids, and I've been there. You want to be mad at the kids because it's like they always running to defend mom. And so a lot of men will cut off the kid and the mom because it's like, this kid is now sided with mom. But especially if that's your son, I mean, they're fighting not only what they've been socialized to do, but what they're actually biologically wired to do naturally, which is to defend that woman, even if she's wrong. You could take a prostitute crackhead mama, and yet her son, Dwayne Wade, I remember hearing that story about Dwayne Wade. The son is still going to feel like, I got to take care of mom. I got to take care of mom. So that's a good point, man. I hadn't thought about it from that way, even inside our own home.
And I'll say I've instilled that in my son. So, his priority, especially with me being deployed for extended periods, even when he was little, it was like, okay, I got it. Your mother's your mom's, the adult, but you're in charge. And sometimes I tell him, like, you're the man of the house while I'm gone. And he'd be daddy comes up, yeah, I see him still check the locks and do all that stuff. He was doing all that at a young age for everybody was in bed and make sure everything was locked up and stuff. So I was trying to instill in him early on to be that protector. So when he's a father and things like that, I believe those are just some things that our role, protector of that family and everything. So you look at, I hate to use the animal kingdom as an example, but I've seen it in the animal kingdom. But as lazy as them dudes was, they were still the fighters. You know what I'm saying? Now you go over to their house, the women did everything, worked the fields, did all the cleaning, the cooking, dudes just sitting around smoking cigarettes and, playing with their little beads and stuff, their prayer beads. We have another name for them. I'm not gonna say it on the show. It's going on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, I better not say it.
And the podcast. Yeah, you don't give me strikes.
Okay, so you get that little restricted warning on yours.
Right.
But with their prayer beads. And but yet again, the women weren't the fighters. Things like that. That man still had that protector role, defend, and even if soldiers did something dumb, like it happened earlier on in those deployments, before we had a lot of became culturally aware, in different traditions and just being aware how, so you don't cause offense over there. Mm-hmm. If you did, then it was the eldest son's responsibility to do something. So if you did something to that family, it wasn't dad, especially the, older dad. For example, you do a raid, do a search, the proper thing to do, you dealing with the eldest male, the father, but you don't cuff him, don't search his head, remove his head covering in front of the family. The proper thing to do is you treat him still with some respect, bring him outside, and don't do that in front of his family. Because one, if he's innocent, right, and you hit the wrong house and stuff, and while you securing everybody, then when you leave, they're gonna go find, even if they were neutral, then they're gonna go find that local insurgents. They all know who the insurgents are, and then they're gonna go ahead and get that extra $100 that week. They, a lot of them was, the unemployment rate was through the roof up there, and inflation anyway during that time. But they're gonna get that IED. The eldest son gonna go get the IED, put it out on MSR Tampa, and blow up a coalition convoy to, because you dishonored his father, that family. Right. And I learned that way before the war started with a guy I went to boot camp with in the Marine Corps. And he was telling me about a time this guy he knows went to jail and was doing life because he killed the sister and dishonored the family. And this was over dating a black dude. And he was telling about this in boot camp. And he was from Dearborn, right, from Beirut. His father is, not his father, one of his uncles was like vice president over there during the time, 94. And, he felt it was his obligation to join the Marine Corps because this country allowed him to be a citizen. So he would fight in their military for 4 years. And I remember this is right after Desert Storm when I went in. So he was catching it in boot camp. I mean, he was catching it. But those guys had just got back from Saudi and stuff. And it wasn't as politically correct as it is now. But he made it. And I remember one thing she was telling me is they had warned the daughter that she's not to be seen with him. And she kept dating him. One day she pulled up. He walked out to the car and blew her brains out, pulled her out the car and shot her, and then waited for the police. And to the family, that was perfectly acceptable. That was what he was supposed to do. And I've seen it in Kuwait, things like that. I've seen it in Iraq. It's even worse in Kuwait because a lot of their workforce, a large percentage of their workforce is not Kuwaiti citizens. Mm-hmm. They are, what do you want to call them? They're not legal. They're documented immigrants, right? But they don't have citizenship status. So they'll be there on like a temporary visa or whatever over there, work permits and all. And some of them, the Kuwaitis do the free education, healthcare, all stuff, a lot of benefits being a Kuwaiti citizen. And some people are there almost like an indentured servitude because they dishonored the family. So you have to buy your honor back. So, right. So you can be over there from like Saudi Arabia trying to make enough money to go back and basically give 30 grand to your family, buy your honor back. Yeah. So I saw that over there. Iraq, different things too. So the honor thing is really big over there. And just, again, being culturally aware.
ironically, that came up. I was talking to a young lady recently, and she had a physical altercation with, at the time, her boyfriend. And so I asked her, I said, and this young lady's in her 20s. I said, has your dad met your boyfriends? And she was like, oh yeah, her stepdad has met a lot of her boyfriends. It's like, oh, okay. And I said, well, here's the question that I have. Why did this guy feel that it was okay for him to put his hands on you, and he did not worry that your stepdad was going to come take care of him? And, she was just like, well, and I told her, I said, the guy that's dating my daughter, he got told what's going to happen to him if he does anything to my daughter the first time he came up in my house. So, and then I ended up sharing the story of how it's done in other countries, that, and I even went back to the book of Genesis where, where Jacob's sons took care of the men of that town when they defiled the sister. And Jacob actually looked wrong, like, hey, we want peace with these guys. Brother's like, no, you done defiled our sister. We getting all of y'all. And so, I think that goes back to, there is that good element of protecting the woman that is definitely beneficial. And I think I'm not gonna go completely down that road, but because I'm talking about gender roles in this case, this is the good part, that women do benefit, and they do like that benefit, that they do know, because I don't care how much of a strong feminist or strong independent a woman may be, when she has to go out here and put in that work against a dude that's attacking her, she wants another guy to come give her some help. And it's good. I think that's where, again, we complement each other. And so, again, going back, it's innately in us, even as young kids. God put us, because we're going to believe God did it versus evolution. God put that in us for a reason, reason.
It's funny you mention that, because I just wrote about that 2 weeks ago, and I didn't get a comment from any of the females in my cohort. So it's only me and one other guy left. The rest are females. So 13 of us from my original cohort in this grad program. So the discussion about ethics came up, and he was talking about things in the military, because he's a retiree as well. And I don't remember exactly what it was about. It was about equality and stuff. So then I brought up the draft system, right? He was trying to say, hey, the military has basically been a leading example. Things will happen in the military first, like with integration. With Black folks, and there was a time where units end up integrating, but then when you went off base, it was still segregated, right? So his point was, same thing with women. It kind of bled over into the workforce for a lot of areas too, and stuff, and women's rights and things. And now you got women being allowed in combat. So I brought up, well, that's interesting. I just seen an article, and there was like bipartisan support for the Defense Authorization Act here for 2022 to have women registered for the Selective Service.
Ooh.
And I brought that up. No comment. And I think it goes back to what benefits them, though, because if we're going to talk equality, I don't want to get too far off topic, but you don't see where I'm going. If we're going to discuss again, like in my class, equality, how women are being mistreated, pay gap between, white males, white females, and then Black females as well, between white males, nationally still, and how things need to be equal and all this stuff. But then, okay, hey, why did my son have to register for the Selective Service? Which basically, if he accepted, he didn't even know he did. I showed him. I was like, yes, you did. Here's your draft number. And he was like, I never signed for that. And I said, because you went and got a license in Texas, you automatically got registered for it.
Wow.
Showed him, pulled it up on the website and everything. And he didn't even know, right? Probably something a little small. But that didn't happen to my daughter. Both of them got their license there, though. So same thing there. We want the equality. By the way, I'm not a fan. I don't want none of my daughters having, I don't believe that's their role to have to do that. But when you're pushing it in the classroom, in my opinion, and you're not incorporating religious beliefs, then how can you disagree with that? In my opinion, and say, well, no, the men need to go do that and go fight and die if we need a draft. That's not a woman's place. Everywhere except that, right? But she should be allowed to be an infantryman if she chooses. And the argument is, well, she chooses to. Because that was one of the comments in another part when he mentioned about being allowed in combat and stuff, which that's a whole nother conversation. Because before they were integrated supposedly in the infantry, I can tell you now, I've been right there in the middle of a battle, right next to me. Before that ever changed, that was like smoking, just blowing smoke to y'all from the media. Long before that changed, they were already on the battlefield. It's just a word game. But yeah, they were already in combat. I had one right next to me. It's just the way they won't assign them to the unit, they'll attach them to the unit. Just a little, like I said, playing a word game. But if they need them, we needed females to search other females for one. We needed, some of your, what are they called? Counterintelligence people, your tactical THT teams. They were basically like our interrogators. Some of those were women. And so, yeah, we kick in the door, secure the objective, and then they come in and they're dealing one-on-one, with, whoever we grab up. So it's not like they weren't there. They were like way behind the enemy line. No, they were right there on the objective. They just weren't the ones to kick in the door. You know what I mean? They just can't, but they were on the mission. This is like, it's stuff like that.
Wow. That is a perfect segue, because let's now move into